today's podcast, we meet two people who took different routes to their marketing careers, but having worked for the same organisation on more than one occasion, have become good friends. Kerry O'Brien now runs her own successful marketing consultancy, KOKO, and Nicki Moody is a project director for digital marketing agency Fresh Egg. We find out if the challenges of working client-side or agency-side are any different and which they prefer. Nicki, Kerry, thanks for being here today. Having been introduced to you by my colleague Ben Charlesworth, I was trying to work out what the relationship between you two was. Are you just ex-colleagues or now lifelong friends?
Yeah, well, we're friends and colleagues, really. We met many, many years ago when we were both working for the Thomas Cook brand in travel, but we both worked for different companies that were owned by Thomas Cook. So I worked for Nielsen Active Holidays and Nicki worked for Club 18 to 30, and we were based down in Brighton Marina.
That sounds like an idyllic place, Brighton Marina. Was it good fun being down there?
Yeah, definitely. It's a great office space down there. We had roof terrace, spread over a couple of floors, lots of kind of social things going on. We had a lovely cafeteria, surrounded by boats and sunshine a lot of the time. It was a scary place to be when there was a storm brewing, but yeah, very pleasant.
And in the office that you worked, was it all the brands on the same floor, or were they split up, or how did you get to meet one another?
Yeah, they moved around quite a lot, but for a while we were based on the same floor. But actually, sometimes the marketing teams would share knowledge because we had sort of smaller marketing teams working for each brand. So that's how we got
So
to
it's kind of collaborative working, was it?
collaboratively and also socially as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds good. But you've not just worked at Thomas Cook twice. You've actually also been together, although for only a very short time. I believe that, Nicki, you joined Fresh Egg at the time when Kerry was leaving.
Yes. Yeah.
Is that still good friendship, or is it the fact that actually I'm leaving now,
No.
I've gone?
No, it was nice actually. I knew a few people there at the time when I joined, but yeah, I had a crossover with Kerry, and she actually handed her role over to me at the time I joined Fresh Egg. So you could say I've kind of like followed Kerry around different companies across the years. Not stalking, but it might seem like that sometimes.
So we've just crossed paths really a few times,
Yeah.
but we've always been quite supportive to each other within like the working environment, as many people are.
You both now work for agency side, and I'll describe what I mean by that. Is that you're not contracted to a single employer, just to make the difference between client side versus agency side. I assume that your decision, Kerry, was one that you made positively to move into that. But Nicki, was your decision to move into agency side influenced by Kerry at all?
No, it was kind of more influenced by the agencies that I worked with in my first sort of full-time job after university, which was at Club 1830. So the first agency I ever worked for was actually an agency owned by someone who had been my account director for a previous agency they worked for. So they went off to set up their own agency, and it kind of the opportunity came about that way. So I was obviously, when I was working with agencies, I really enjoyed working with them, and I was kind of just interested to see what the other side was like, and that was my first taste of it, really.
And what was your decision, Kerry? Was it similar?
Yeah, a couple of things really. So I was a marketing manager at Virgin Holidays at the time when I moved over to agency side. And one of the things that drove that decision was just really getting more breadth of digital experience, because I'd been focused quite a lot on customer experience and CRM in the role that I was in. And moving to a digital agency seems like it would be a positive thing to do at the time. And I was able to sort of upskill myself across all different facets of digital, really, which was really useful. And again, just wanted to have experience of both client and agency side, which I think can be quite useful for people in their career.
And did you think that breadth of knowledge was one that gave you the impetus to be able to move on to other things, or do you still hanker after some specialization? Because obviously marketing has changed fairly dramatically over the last 10, 15 years, where there's much more specialization and there's much more to learn. So would you be interested in going back to being more specialized, or do you like the generalistic approach?
Right now, when I'm consulting, I don't consult for absolutely everything. So I guess I have some specialisms, like lots of marketers. Really, I think I can't remember who said this originally, but I have heard people refer to it as like a T-shaped marketer. So you've got strategic experience across all of the different disciplines, but you can focus down into 2 or 3 different areas, and that's definitely the case for me.
And Nicki, what about you working at Fresh Egg?
Yeah, I think it's quite similar really, because we obviously offer a number of different digital services, but there are some areas of that, for example, CRO and SEO, that I probably spend more of my time focusing on, and as such, you sort of develop more knowledge in those areas and get put on those types of projects, and they become specialisms kind of more naturally. But I think I'd like to keep that broad range of skills, and we often introduce new services or start different product innovations around what's happening in the marketplace. And I always want to keep that kind of knowledge and like just learning about everything new that's coming up, and sort of add to my skills as well as keeping those core specialisms. So I think a bit of both really.
Because I don't know if you listened to my last podcast with Veronica Bodachenko about digital optimization, but it was trying to express that digital optimization is now becoming a very broad church. It's lots and lots of different skills, but lots and lots of people working collaboratively as part of a broad team. But being, I'll use this phrase sparingly, but being on the outside of an organization, so not working within that organization, do you find that's difficult to be able to do, to be part of that team that's now working much more cohesively?
For me personally, I don't find it more difficult. It depends how each individual client's set up. When I've been working with other agencies and we've been working with clients, we normally use like a design thinking methodology. So you actually sort of bring in experts from different specialisms from the client into your team and all work together in a group. So you don't really necessarily feel that level of separation. You might feel more as a member of the team. And that's definitely the case when I'm working with clients who perhaps don't always have a huge marketing department. You can be the specialist for a couple of things, and you might be working with other specialists either externally or in house. So it's like most things, really, you just need really good communication.
But Nicki, from your perspective, you might be working with large multinational clients potentially. Is it much more challenging in being part of that team when you're sitting externally?
No, I think in initial stages of building a relationship, it can be a little bit of a challenge, because often, because of the way client teams are set up, they might not be structured in a way where they openly collaborate. So we often find we're doing a bit of a job of either making them work together or talk to each other. So there's a bit of finding out who everyone is, where their specialisms lie. Sometimes organisation structures can be a bit kind of disjointed, in that all the people you would expect to be in one team may kind of sit in separate teams. So there's a bit of working out to do, I think, when you first start to work with people, but we often facilitate that to an extent. And we kind of bring our specialists in at the right points to work with them and kind of bring them all together as one team. We do a lot of collaborative workshops and that type of thing to kind of make sure we're getting inputs from all areas of the business, and we're also getting known throughout the company that we're working with.
I think the last 12 months in the pandemic with COVID has actually helped flatten the landscape a little in with regard to that. Because I think that when everybody's in the same building or in the same office block, it's much more easy to be collaborative than perhaps working remotely. But in the last 12 months, everybody's had to work remotely. So I think we've probably overcome one of those barriers by the fact that we can't or haven't been able to sit in the same room at the same time. But one of the things that I'm hearing, and I'm hearing that from a number of different people, is more and more companies are looking to do more in-house marketing. So do you think that's to do with better control, potential lower cost in driving that kind of move? You're listening to the shortened version of this podcast. To listen to the full version, visit your favourite podcast player and search for Webtrends Optimize or The Big Lift.